Hi, everyone. Welcome to A Word with Kelly Scott Reed. We're here today with Shiksha Dheda. Nice to see you. Where are you coming to us from?
Thank you so much, Kelly, for having me here. I am so excited about this. I am joining in all the way from Johannesburg, South Africa. So it's evening almost here.
That's amazing. And it's summer almost there.
Yeah, it's so 28 degrees Celsius already and it's not even October yet. So yeah, it's pretty warm. It's pretty candid, but I'm not actually wearing pants, so that's how warm it is. Yeah.
I have a confession. I'm not wearing them either.
Okay.
I'm
No
wearing
pants.
sweatpants.
Solidarity. Yeah.
Well, welcome. I'm so glad to have you. And I see behind you, you have some of your artwork from your wonderful
Yeah.
book. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
It's actually interesting because in 2019, I wanted to paint and I don't know anything about painting. So I just painted a bunch of things. And because I have a very obsessive personality, I think in like 3 weeks, I did like 50 paintings and some of them were really bad. That's why there's only 4 on here. So, but then I know when we were looking for cover art for Washed Away, and I was like, why do I feel like I have painted something which I think resonates already with this? And then I looked through my paintings and I asked Red from Alien Buddha Press how he feels about that painting. And he said he thinks it works perfectly. So it wasn't actually planned. I didn't think that the painting I made in 2019 would be the cover of a book that was written in 2021. So it wasn't actually planned. It was just a coincidence.
That's
Interestingly.
incredible because it's absolutely perfect. It's beautiful. I couldn't imagine a better cover. That's incredible. And those other paintings, obviously, you did as well.
Yeah, yeah. So
I love the
I was
branches and the
shocked.
moon.
I was shocked that it matched. So that was interesting. Also, that one, those aren't branches. That's supposed to be like an octopus. So I'm not
Oh my
sure.
God. Listen, I got to put my glasses on.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can see that.
I am notorious. I am notoriously blind
Yeah.
and refuse to wear glasses. So
Well, I mean,
I
it
see
could be
it.
like branches. I think it could as well. I mean, I guess. So,
I'm sorry. No, but seriously, that it's my blindness. It has nothing to do with you.
I
Oh
mean,
my goodness.
art is subjective, right? I mean, there's no reason why it can't be branches. So
Especially when you're not wearing glasses is subjective. So, could you describe a time in your life when you realized that language had power?
I don't think there's a particular time because but I do think that I'm of Indian ethnicity, but I have been born and brought up in South Africa, which I'm not sure if you know, but there's an array of different cultures, different race groups, different languages. And I think when you are exposed to that from the onset, you realize that language is integral to culture. And you also realize that language is integral to communicating with other people and understanding their culture. I mean, I live in a multi generational home. So my grandparents aren't actually English speaking, but yet they can speak English and they can speak Gujarati as well. They can speak a bit of Hindi and they can speak a bit of Afrikaans. And then when I went to school, people were speaking English. People had they were using slang terminology, which I wasn't familiar with. And that's when you realize that you pick up on all of these things, and in picking up on people's language, you kind of pick up on their culture, and you can communicate with them better. So I think for me, language has always held a position of being integral to communication and connecting with people. I mean, I know there are lots of other ways, but I think for me, that's when I realized the power that language has because it becomes so integral to people's way of life and their culture. So that's when I realized the power of language.
Hmm. That's interesting. My grandmother didn't speak English when she came to the United States, learned English, and what she told me was she learned all the slang terms first,
Yeah.
which I thought was so funny. She didn't know how to say how to get somewhere, but she knew all the swear words in English, and I thought that
Yeah,
was really funny.
that's always the case. And when you meet someone and you're like, hey, I want to learn your language, they're like, okay, these are the swear words. And you're like, okay, am I going to be using those like all the time, or are those integral? So yeah, that happens.
That's so funny. No, who are your literary heroes?
I don't actually have many. I mean, Emily Dickinson is right up there for me, to be honest. And then there's obviously Mary Oliver, I think. And I think I've been exposed to a lot of contemporary poets a lot. And it's very, like, sometimes I'll realize that I have read something and I wouldn't know who the poet is. And I'd be quoting it and someone would be like, oh, I didn't know you read that person. And I'll be like, I didn't know either, because I just know the quote. So yeah, I think what is shocking when I have engaged more with people from sort of the lit mag Twitter and writing Twitter was that I don't know much about writing. I don't even know that much about reading. So for me, I think this has been a turning point where I'm starting to view writing more as a craft and starting to view it as more as something that I have to actively work on, which is not something that I had thought about when I started on this journey in the beginning of 2021. So I know there's a lot that I've learned about writing and reading just sort of by interacting with people. So that's not really the answer to your question exactly, but
no, it actually, I totally connect in that way. Sometimes I'm very new to the world. I've written my whole life. I've read my whole life, but there's a whole world out there that I haven't been exposed to. So Mary Oliver is a big one for me. Of course, she's someone that's very accessible, in my opinion, to most readers, because she kind of operates on this level, I feel, that communicates so effortlessly with nature, with human condition. You know, it's wonderful work. But if people throw out names, I'm always like, oh, I don't know who that is. I've never heard of that person. And exactly. I feel kind of like, you know, I have different things that maybe I've heard of that others haven't, but that's what this world has opened up for me. Expand on that. So you said you started the journey in 2021. Have you written much before that?
To be very honest, besides for high school, I hadn't really written much. And then what I noticed though about myself was that after sort of high school till now, that whenever I reached a point of sort of dismay, when I felt like I didn't know how to express myself, then I'd write down something. It wouldn't be very articulate. It wouldn't be very polished, but I just write it down. And then sort of in 2021, I was like, you know, I have all this writing that's not polished that I feel like I could do something with. And then I decided to start sort of editing it and then sort of sending it out. And that's what I did in January 2021. And then I started writing more in 2021. So it's kind of been on and off. So even if I think about my collection of Washed Away, there's some pieces which I wrote like in 2021, and there's some which are more than like 10 years old because it was very disjointed. So I wouldn't say I have a very linear sort of relationship with writing. It just comes and goes most of the time. But from 2021 till now, I think that would be the most that I have actively pursued kind of writing and editing and actually getting my work out there. So that's a first for me, definitely.
That's impressive, because reading your work feels like you're reading the work of a very seasoned, in tune writer. So that's a compliment. I'm like, that's why I'm like, wait a minute, just 21?
Because it doesn't feel like that. Like when I read a lot of other people's work, I'll be like, wow, like I'm like, my writing is nothing close to this. Like I feel the imposter syndrome really hits. And then I'm like, this writing is so good. Like I have so far to go to get to this position where I can feel that way about my own writing. So that does mean a lot to me. Thank you.
Oh, great. Now, is there anybody that you work with, any other authors or writers that you run your work by?
I actually don't. Like I am part of a lot of writing groups, and they did have a lot of generative workshops and stuff, but I haven't actually been attending them, time differences. And also I just kind of for the last year, so I haven't had the energy to sort of interact with people a lot. And what happens is I write things and I never actually send them out. The first time I send them out is to the places that I'm submitting to. So that's why sometimes I think it's very hit and miss. Some of the things people feel that it's polished, it's ready to publish. And I'm sure some of them, they're like, no, this is, I think someone actually replied to one of the lit mags I submitted to, and she said, she was like, well, I found it slightly condescending, but I think she meant it in a good way. She was like, I'm just writing this email because your work isn't at all ready for publication. And then she's like, I didn't even read past the first two paragraphs and there were all these problems with it. And I'm only saying this because I can. I was like, I don't know you, but I was like, I appreciate this, I guess. I mean, I'll take it as valuable criticism. So I think that shows that when you don't actually share your work with sort of other writer friends, sometimes you'll hit and sometimes you'll miss. So I think it would help me if I did do that, but I don't think I'm in a space to be and to have somebody to send my work to and to also do the same for them, because it's kind of an accountability buddy. And I don't know if I can bring that same energy to the table for them, because I might not be available at that point. And I wouldn't want that sort of to be very imbalanced. So yeah.
I was really afraid to, like, I never submitted anything until last year. That's not true. I wrote a lot of things that got me some attention, but it had nothing to do with the literary world. It was like songwriting or something like that, because I was afraid of criticism. I still am afraid of criticism. I worry. The things I write are me most of the time. So if someone says they're not good, I take it very personally. And it's just something I'm learning to get over. And I'm, 52 years old and I still feel that way. It never got easier. And so I just kind of walk myself through it, breathe through it. The criticism is, it is helpful. Like, you're right. It helps you focus. It helps you get out of your own way, but it's hard. It's very hard to get out of that space in my head.
I know a lot of people say, like, when you get rejections, then they're like, you shouldn't take them personally. But then, are we not taking acceptances personally as well? When people say, I really like this writing, it really shows me, like, this is almost a masterpiece. Do I not take that personally? That's the same as somebody saying, this writing didn't connect with me, and I think that you don't know much about writing. That's personal, as well as somebody giving you a compliment about your writing. It is personal. And I think when we tell people not to take things personally, I mean, writing is quite personal. Anything we do is quite personal in life. I think it's a way that people say to desensitize you, to not feel bad, but it's the truth. Lit mags can only take so many pieces. They have to reject work that is good. They have to reject work that is written very well. There's nothing that can be done about that. It doesn't reflect on your work, but it doesn't mean that it's not personal either. So I think there's a difference there, a very thin line though. So yeah.
Good point. I really never thought of it that way. Like, what's wrong with me? Why can't I take criticism? Yet I'll bask in the glow. Give me as many compliments as you can shuffle onto me. Now, do you think that where and how you grow up affects your writing, in particular? It's in particular or in general?
I think it definitely does, because for one, I don't come from a family that writes. I come from a very science-oriented family. And in fact, this has actually been a bit of a touchy point for me, because even when my debut poetry collection got released, I felt that sort of the people around me didn't care. And I was like, why don't you? It's kind of like my debut poetry collection. Did you even read it? And nobody in my family actually has read the entirety of it. And for me, it's like, I've had to realize that maybe it's not because people don't care. Maybe it's just because they don't have that value on writing and reading as much as I do. Like, I know we were always encouraged in my family to study and to read, but it wasn't something that kind of has been actively pursued in my family. I know when I was in high school, and then my English teacher told me, you should really look into studying sort of English or something English oriented. And like, for my parents, that wasn't even an option at all. Like, so they just thought that when I would do English things, when I sort of enlist in English Olympiads, that it was just something to kill time with. I know whenever I told my parents, they were like, yeah, after you get your degree, then you can focus on it. But so I do think that if it had been more encouraged, I'd probably have done what I'm doing now, probably years before. So it's kind of like I've had to find this by myself. I've had to sort of build this writing community by myself. And in my real life, there's none of that same energy. Like, I don't have friends that enjoy reading. I don't have friends that enjoy writing. So it's just like even if I share something with them, they'll be like, oh yeah, that's nice. That's good. But it's not, you can see it's not something they enjoy, because I don't have that sort of writing and reading focused community. So I think it does definitely shape when you start writing, how you start writing, and how much importance you give to it as a craft. And if you view it as a craft, or it's just something that's kind of a hobby or something to kind of fill your time with. So I think that definitely does affect the way you view writing and the way you view yourself as a writer.
So in that vein, when you do write, does it energize you or does it drain you? Or what is the effect after you're done writing something for you personally?
For me, it's just to release emotions that I can't express in another way. Like, if I was sort of better at painting, if I was a dancer, if I was a singer, perhaps I would get that same release. So for me, writing is actually a very selfish thing. It's for me to express myself on the page. And so I think after I write, it's more of a release than anything else. I wouldn't say it's draining at all. But in that same vein, I don't do it if I feel very tired, or if I feel like I'm very preoccupied, because I know I'm just going to do it for the sake of doing it then. So I usually only do it when I feel like I really need to express myself. So it's very much just for me. It's very much, I call it a type of a relaxation technique in a way. So yeah.
So that's interesting you say that, because what you're saying it's a selfish act for you, but what your writing does is it connects with people who are, I think, struggling with their own words on how to deal with the very personal things they're going through, whatever that may be. So through your act of, let's call it meditation, because it kind of is I think a meditation. You're bringing these words that can heal other people. I think in terms of what I watched, what I saw in Washed Away. So I thought that it was extremely therapeutic. There's a therapeutic aspect to your writing that which also Mary Oliver has. I find her writing to be therapeutic. When I read it at the end of my yoga classes. I use her all the time, Mary Oliver, because we're in Shavasana and we're laying there and your mind just fills. Like, you try your best to not, but then when you hear this, it sets you on this path of understanding of yourself. You can let things go. And I think your writing does that a lot. So there's a little bit, I see that in your writing.
I was actually surprised, to be really honest, that when I started putting my work out, I didn't expect that response. And then when people kind of started telling me, I really connected with it, or this was expressed well, or despite being very specific, kind of about your own OCD, it kind of resonated with me to an extent. I didn't expect that. That was very surprising for me. And I think that led me to another kind of realization that sometimes when you are trying to express yourself or trying to do something for yourself, people will benefit from that. And I think that's something that I'm really struggling with, in terms of sort of the difference between self-care and selfishness, and the difference between, if you are doing something to benefit yourself, sometimes people around you will benefit from that. And it also reminds me of something I watched when someone said, I didn't realize that I was trying to give my dog, it was about a dog, I was trying to give my dog a good life. And in doing so, I lived a good life. And I think that fits so with parents as well. I think people sometimes, when they do things for other people, they view it as an act upon that person and not as if they are in it as well. Yet sometimes we realize that if we do something to help someone, sometimes we also benefit from it. And I think that's what writing and putting my writing out there actually showed me, that sometimes, like, I was doing it for myself. That was the primary reason why I was doing it. And some people resonated with that. So I think that's something that I'm definitely going to take along with other aspects in my life. I'm going to try and include that in other things.
Well, that was really beautiful. Thank you. I actually teared up a little there. Oh, the dog thing.
Yeah.
Both Marianne and I rescued dogs. And that is very true. When I was going on my vacation, I had to leave her with people. And I'm like, oh, I need her. What am I going to do for a week? What are some of, besides, so you paint, obviously. Do you have any other creative outlets that you relish in every once in a while?
I mean, I count cooking or baking as creative. I really enjoy doing that. I don't know if you saw my tweet with about a month back or a few weeks ago, I decided that I was going to try making spinach and feta cannelloni, and I overestimated, and they were 50 shells that I had to fill. So I think it was like 1 a.m. in the morning, and I was sitting there with a tiny teaspoon and a straw trying to like put the filling in, and I was like, oh, okay, I think I overestimated how much I needed. But yeah, it turned out well, so I don't regret doing it. So I think I would count cooking and baking as well as that. But baking is a bit difficult because I hate following instructions. So
Me too.
With recipes, you have to follow instructions, and I hate it. I like estimating or changing things according to how I want to. So that's why baking, not so much, but yeah, definitely cooking.
Well, baking is chemistry. I'm not good at chemistry, but like I cook a lot of Italian food. I come from a long line of great Italian cooks, and it's a little improvisational. Like you love the improvisational cooking. Like we're going to make this, we're going to throw this in, let's taste it, let's get something out. I love that. But then when I try to bake, it's almost a joke. It fails every time. My mom is a great baker. She follows the rules. I can't. Oh, that's close enough. Oh, that's 5 teaspoons, close enough. That kind of thing. I'm not great at following directions either. Could you let us know what you're working on? If there's anything coming out soon?
Actually, on the 9th of October, I have my latest chapbook called The Tragedy of Touch coming out with Brittle Press. So that is basically a chapbook that is partly told in Venn diagrams. There's a painting in there, and there's normal text poems as well. So that's something that's coming out soon. And I'm not working actively on anything, but I know I'm looking for homes for 2 chapbooks. One's another poetry one, and one's an essay. So it's a nonfiction manuscript, which is a bit scary, because it's not like, when you write poetry, you can kind of say it may be autobiographical, it may be the truth, it may not be, but with essays, you can't hide behind that. So that's kind of completely the truth. So yeah, I'm just waiting to hear back on that, though the poetry chapbook has raked up close to 30 rejections so far. So yeah, I'll see when eventually it finds a home, but I'm not actively working on anything at the moment. So yeah.
Got it. Where can we find you? Give your little Twitter handle. If you're on Instagram, anything else, let us know. Have a website.
Okay, so Twitter is where I am almost all the time. So I'm sure you guys know that, because I'm always tweeting nonsense. So that's at Shiksha Writes. And I am on Instagram, but not that much. It's at Shiksha Poetry. And I don't even know what is my website handle. I'll have to go check that.
Google it.
I'll have to check that. I don't know that offhand. Never thought I'd have to know that offhand. Wow, now my phone will decide to take forever because it knows.
Your time.
My website is Shiksha Dheda, I think, oh gosh, just wait. I don't know why it's refusing to go there.
I'll put it on the tag for the interview. Okay. Too. All this stuff will be there.
Okay.
So people can read you.
shikshadheda.wixsite.com/writing. Nice. Simple. I should remember that.
I so appreciate you being with us. This has been awesome. So good to meet you in person. It's literally the highlight of Whenever I do interviews, it's a highlight because there are people I interact with you all the time on
Yeah.
Twitter. I find what you say interesting. I find what you write interesting. So it's been really great speaking with you. I really thank you for taking this evening with us.
Well, thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate your publication. I appreciate that you've published me before. I appreciate that you've had me on your book club and that you've invited me here. I think what you guys do for the Lit Mag community is really exceptional. It's very tiring to sort of effortlessly and voluntarily do so much upliftment for the community. And you guys are definitely one of the good lit mags, and I am happy to have connected with you and to have a good working relationship. I really do appreciate that.
Thank you so much. We'll see you soon. I'm excited to see what you have coming up. Thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.